Now, this will be President Museveni's third term in office should he win the elections. KTN's political editor Ben Kitili analyzed the issue of Africa's third-term presidents, and here is that story.
The issue of third-term presidents in Africa is rife again, with elections looming in several African countries like Djibouti, Chad and Gambia, whose presidents have already served for 2 or more terms, and all of who have no term limits. Back home here in East Africa, Rwanda and Burundi are prime examples, with protesting Burundians expecting other East African presidents to speak against Pierre Nkurunziza's third-term bid. In vain. Pierre Nkurunziza's bid for a third term as Burundi president has seen the East African nation make apparent retrogressive steps following the end of civil war 10 years ago. Bloody protests have hit the capital Bujumbura since April, when Nkurunziza announced that he would seek a third term in office. All along, the opposition in Burundi has insisted that a third term for Nkurunziza is against the country's constitution, but the courts backed the Burundi president.
Nkurunziza is a great guy, but certainly he's done his time. Of course, you can say he's young and he thinks he should be around, but that's not the point. The point is he should have allowed an early...
African presidents have been accused of an appetite for power and a desire to rule for long periods. It seems the problem is much closer to home, with 3 out of the 5 presidents in East Africa either staying or seeking to stay in power for more than 2 terms. But supporters say the former Hutu rebel leader was eligible for a third term as he was chosen by parliament and not popularly elected for his first term in 2005.
Whatever the case, it cannot be at the expense of your country. It cannot be at the loss of human lives. It cannot be at the expense of peace and stability in your country.
It turns out the issue is not consigned to Burundi alone. In neighboring Rwanda, a similar narrative is shaping debate across the region, albeit with less resistance. In mid-July, the Rwandan parliament voted in support of a constitutional amendment to allow President Paul Kagame to run for a third term as president. Some 3.7 million people signed a petition to amend Article 101 of the country's constitution that limits the presidents to 2 terms only.
When you see a term limit being a subject of popular vote and popular debate to say, yes, let's remove it because so-and-so is still popular, that is a mark of dictatorship.
Rwanda will now prepare for a national referendum to amend the constitution and effect the change. In Uganda, it is a similar story. On Friday, President Yoweri Museveni picked nomination forms to register his bid to run for president in next year's general election, even after 3 decades in power. Museveni became Uganda's president in 1986 through a military coup and has been re-elected 3 times since 1996. Polls show that 71% of Ugandans will elect the 70-year-old Museveni to move him up the list of the continent's longest-serving leaders. The positive stories in East Africa on presidential term limits are Kenya and Tanzania.
The best example we've had around East Africa is Julius Nyerere. At the time Julius Nyerere was saying, look, I want to leave Tanzania, it is not because he could not have been, he was unpopular. He could still have been a leader. He could still have hung around. But Julius Nyerere decided that enough is enough, let me hand over.
During the last East African Community Summit in Arusha, Tanzania, Burundians called on the region's leaders to discourage Nkurunziza against a third term, but that did not happen.
There's a brotherhood among presidents, among leaders in this region, and in Africa particularly. And this brotherhood means that see no evil, read no evil among your brothers. And so it's very difficult to find an African leader standing up to attack another leader.
Namibia's Sam Nujoma, Malawi's Bakili Muluzi, Frederick Chiluba of Zambia, and Burkina Faso's Blaise Compaoré are famous for changing or attempting to change the law to extend their stay in power. And that trend may be creeping into East Africa. Ben Kitili, KTN News.